Mr. Ravi Philemon is a social worker. Ravi? National Day is a great day, isn't it? I remember that I've never missed, as far as I can remember, I've never missed watching National Day on television. As a little kid, I remember sitting on my father's shoulders and watching the army march past Queenstown. It was like, even when I was away in the USA, National Day, I never missed it. I watched it on the internet. Today is the first time I think I'll miss watching National Day on TV. But it's great to be here. It's a first time a grounds up effort has happened, and all thanks to Gilbert Go and Transitioning. Shall we give him a big clap? It's so great to see all of you here today, the birthday of Singapore. Singapore is founded on the principles of liberty and justice. The leaders who signed our declaration promised to ever seek the welfare and happiness of a people in a more just and equal society. More just and equal society where there will be more welfare and happiness for its people. Singapore, one survey says, it's the most unhappiest country in the world. 48 years later, someone says that we are the most unhappiest country in the world. And welfare, does that exist here in Singapore? And what about a just and equal society? Are we just and equal society? We have become more unequal. And Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong said recently that if he could bring 10 more billionaires into Singapore, he gladly will. Our Gini coefficient is so wide. The divide between the rich and the poor is so wide. And our government, which is so efficient, the day they took out the N95 mask, there was no more haze in Singapore. That's how efficient they are. This government still believes in trickle-down economics. I believe Mr. Tanji Say is going to be one of the speakers here, would be able to tell you more about this trickle-down economics and whether it's useful for Singapore. But we have become a very unequal society. The divide between the rich and the poor has grown so wide, and the HDB prices have gone up. The price of COE is at $70,000. You can buy a luxury car anywhere else in the world with $70,000. That's how unequal we have become. The rich are staying in certain parts of Singapore, and those that are not so well off live in other parts of Singapore. They are pushed to areas like Sembawang and Jurong and Sengkang, while the rich live in Sentosa and Marina Bay and so on. Is this the kind of Singapore that we want? This is not the kind of Singapore that I grew up in. And for me, on National Day, it's very important that we have a more equal society, and that's what we should be striving towards, a more equal society where, like what Mr. Kwan said, no one's job is secure. And in a year's time, no one knows if he will have a job that he has today. That's how uncertain a time we live in. And all we have to be thankful for in this National Day is that for our family, for our loved ones, for our friends who are gathered here to support us throughout this time. And it's the individuals, I believe, who should be celebrated on this National Day. And on this National Day, I just want to remember a few people. Heng Yao Kiao. if you remember who he is. You remember the Nickel Highway collapse? There was this 40-year-old man who was the foreman of that project. And as the Nickel Highway was collapsing, he helped a lot of people to get out of that collapse. But he himself was trapped in that collapse, and his body was never found. He has 2 young children and a wife. And these are the kind of national heroes we have in Singapore. The nameless hero when the MRT broke down, who took, I think, a fire extinguisher to break the door so that people could walk on the track out to safety. That is the kind of national heroes that we have here. I think many of you know Jason Chi, the NS man who lost his limbs because of an accident, but someone who still continues to be patriotic to Singapore. That is the kind of national heroes that we have here. And I know that the national heroes are ordinary people, just like you and me, who have families, ordinary families, just like you and me, but they choose to live more than an ordinary life when the circumstances call for it. And I know personally this man, Samsuri Mahadi, who was homeless and now lives in Jalan Kukoh. He started an outreach to reach out to youths who are wayward in that area. A few days ago, Geraldine and I and some other friends, we went to that neighborhood. And the neighborhood once, which was chaotic, now it's a community. And all thanks to this person who earns $800, who studied only up to primary 6, but he chose to do something for his community. Now, these are the kind of national heroes that we have in Singapore. Judy Chu, who distributes food to the less fortunate all over Singapore. She cooks and distributes food for the less fortunate in Singapore. She deserves a tribute as well. And not only Judy, there are also people from the PAP. I know Abner Koh, a PAP member, who recently stopped his car to help an older woman with a stick in her hand to cross the road. You know, and these are the kind of people we have in Singapore who will go out of the way when the situation calls for it. Very strangely, there was no clap for Abner Koh. Praveen Saivi, a musician whose passion for music brought him beyond Singapore, where he is now competing in an international arena. People who will not give up. And then we have Inch Chua, whose passion for music forced her to leave Singapore to go to a foreign country because she said people told her there's no future for music in Singapore. But today, she is called Singapore's indie pop princess, and she's making waves all over the world. These are the kind of passionate, persevering Singaporeans that we have. And while we are mentioning individuals, and yes, we have spoken about Ong Teng Cheong, President Ong Teng Cheong. I don't know much about him. I've read about him in the papers, and I salute him for all that he has done for Singapore, all that he has stood up for in Singapore. You know, I do know N. Ravi, and he's a friend, and I appreciate him for all the work that he has done. But there's another person that we will be appreciating today, and that's Leslie Chua. Leslie Chu, sorry. Leslie, most of you know him as a cartoonist. Some years ago, he sent me, when I was with TOC, he sent me his cartoons asking if we would highlight it on our website. I looked at it and I highlighted some of it on our website. But he was an unknown cartoonist until he was called out by the AGC for the contempt of court and sedition charges. Some of you may know him only as a cartoonist, but when we were going through the haze crisis, Leslie Chu was the one who helped to bring in the N95 mask from the Singaporeans who are overseas, who are sending them here. That's how much he feels for our society. Leslie Chu was also the man who a few days ago, a week ago, when some of us bloggers got together to organize an event for the less fortunate in Jalan Tuku, who contributed selflessly towards this effort. Many people do not know that he goes out of his way. So yes, we are keyboard warriors, but we are not only keyboard warriors. We go to the keyboard because there are areas that need to be highlighted. There are areas of unhappiness, and we are highlighting them. And I know that Mr. Kwan is standing here, that my time is probably up. But I'll say one more thing before I go up. All these great Singaporeans, they speak about a spirit. Our national anthem, part of it says, "Marilah kita bersatu dengan semangat yang baru." Let us be united in one spirit. As Singaporeans, we are persevering, we are kiasu, we are altruistic, and we are stoic. We endure hardship and pain without complaining or showing pain. We continue the course of action with little or no indication of success. Even when there's little or no indication of success, we are altruistic. We are concerned for the welfare of others. And I propose that even as Singapore is growing, not only 6.9 million people, but a paper a few days ago says that in one generation we may have 8 million people in Singapore. Are we ready for that? No, Singapore is going to be more built up, and we have already had the Hotel New World collapse. We have had the Nickel Highway collapse, and if it's going to be more built up, we can expect a bit more disasters to happen. And I propose on this National Day that we consider setting up a national fund for tragic events, where funds can be, where people can make contributions that are tax deductible, where funds can be drawn to be dished out to these people who are affected by any such crisis. Thank you, Majulah Singapura.
Thank you, Ravi. Thank you, Ravi. Well, Ravi has touched on all aspects of Singapore society. In any nation, there is the strong, there is the weak, there is the rich, there are the poor, there are the wise, there are the foolish, there are the generous, and there are the conservatives. But never mind, we are, as a nation, our heart is for Singapore. And Mr. Lee, I appeal to you, do not think us daft. Treat us as citizens who can make decisions. And I hope you do not use the word daft on us anymore. Thank you, Mr. Lee.